I had been going through one of those classic last weeks at home. Anyone who moves away from where they grew up and then goes back to visit knows exactly what I mean. You have this like laundry list of stuff to do. It always ends up being in the last week. If you're anything like me, it's in the last week because you procrastinated it and you decided to go out with your mates or go down to the beach instead of doing things like going to the dentist. And I remember going to see my mate. I finally got him to book me in. I changed the date on him like 4 times. Finally went in to see the dentist. I did have a filling. So I came out and my mouth was all like shot up with numbing agents. And I was walking down to meet up with Kent and Chris in Auckland City. So like down in the central part of the city. And we were walking down the street and there's a guy walking towards us. And you often get this feeling where you're like, I know that guy, man. I know that guy from somewhere. And the thing is, like 9 times out of 10, it doesn't eventuate into anything. It's just a guy who looks like another guy. Well, in this case, as we got closer and closer, we're like, I think that's Hed from KoRn. And as we got closer to him, we realized that it was him. For once, it actually was someone that you just walk past on the street in New Zealand, of all places. And it turns out to be the guitarist for KoRn. And we went up to him because we were huge fans of KoRn growing up. I mean, they were really, along with like bands like Linkin Park, they were really one of the bands that inspired us to play heavy music. And we went up to him and we started talking to him. And we're like, dude, I'm sorry to bother you, but are you Hed? And he's like, yeah, I am. And we just started talking about how he was down there in New Zealand with his new band, Love and Death. And we'd heard that Hed had left KoRn, that he'd started this new band, and Hed was down there touring with Love and Death. And what was really funny is we obviously had kind of a musician vibe to us, especially when you put like the group of us together. And he's like, are you guys in a band? And we said, yeah, we are. And Hed's like, well, what's the name of your band? And I've been on the other side of that. And I know that often that's just someone being friendly. You know, they're showing an interest. Because if someone comes up to you and knows who you are, then you kind of want to bounce the ball back. And people who are big fans of music are also often musicians themselves. So I've been on the other side of that, and it was quite funny to see Hed from KoRn doing that too. And we're like, yeah, we play in a band called Like a Storm. And he's like, Like a Storm? I know you guys. Yeah, you guys have that Love the Way You Hate Me song. And at that point in time, even though we were in New Zealand, Love the Way You Hate Me was getting played a ton on the radio in the States. And so not only did we have this crazy experience of running into the guitarist from KoRn on the street in Auckland, which is our hometown. So we're just like home visiting and you run into the guitarist from KoRn. But even more weird than that is that he knew who we were. And at that point in time, Love the Way You Hate Me was getting played a lot on the radio. And so he knew quite a bit about us. And so we're kind of having this like freaking out moment, you know, deep down, because on the surface you're just trying to seem cool. So deep down you're like, holy shit, Hed from KoRn knows who we are. But on the surface you're like, oh yeah, man, yeah, you know, you're just doing like your typical like rock and roll bromance stuff. And he's like, oh, are you guys down here touring? And we said, no, we live, like this is where we're from. So we're home in Auckland visiting. Then we're going to go back to the US and start touring again. And he's like, we should do some shows together. you know, and in our minds we're going like, fuck yeah, fuck yeah, fuck yeah. But on the surface we're like, oh yeah, that sounds cool. That sounds cool. And he's like, actually, you know, I know you guys are doing really well. Maybe we should open for you guys. And there's this like split second where you wait to like see that it's all like a big joke. You wait that it's like, oh no, this is the setup. And then he's gonna go, psych, of course, we're not gonna open for you guys. I'm fucking Head from KoRn. But he was serious. He was serious because at that point in time, he had started this new venture and we had a song that was getting played a lot. And so in his mind, even though he's Head from KoRn, in his mind, his band should open for us. Sadly, not long after that, Head went back and rejoined KoRn. So we never had the opportunity to have Head from KoRn's band open for us. Although I don't think we ever would have allowed that, because even if our song was doing well at the time, it just seems almost like unnatural to have one of your favorite guitarists in the world opening for you. So what was kind of funny is we played with KoRn a number of times after that. So we would run into Head at like a festival in the States, or you know, one of those massive European music festivals. So we had this like really funny kind of ongoing conversation with him that started in New Zealand, of all places. Then we ran into him in the States. Then we ran into him in England. Then we ran into him in Germany. Then we ran into him back in the States again. And we never did get to see if his band would actually open for us. But it was amazing because it was both this like crazy experience of meeting one of your idols in your hometown, like on the other side of the world from where they're from and from where you now live. And then the other part of it is that he actually knew who we were, and he thought that he should open for us. So that was kind of a crazy moment. And I thought it really speaks to the fact that being in a touring band in many ways is like going to summer camp. And I've always thought this, and the funny thing about it is that because I grew up in New Zealand, we don't actually go to summer camp. So anything I know about summer camp is from American movies. So I actually have no idea what summer camp is like for real. But I always thought that being on tour was kind of like summer camp seems in those American movies. Because you like run into people in some random place. Like when we ran into Head every time after we first saw him in New Zealand, it was like, you know, America, like somewhere in the middle of America. Then it's England, then it's Germany, then it's somewhere in a totally different part of America. But every time you see them, you like pick up the conversation again. And that's what reminds me of summer camp, because it's kind of like you have these friendships with people, or you have these connections with people, and then like at that point in time, because you're on tour together, or you're playing the same festival, and then you like go away and do whatever. And then when you see them again, it's almost like now you're back at summer camp again, and you pick up that conversation, and you pick up that connection. And then you go away again, and you might not see these people for years in between. But I always thought it was kind of a cool quirk of being in a touring band, is that it's like this little bubble, and you can go away from it and do your own tours. You can go away from it and, you know, take time off the road and make a record. You can always have these times away from the road, but when you come back to it, it's like being back at summer camp again. And you're like, oh, it's that guy, and it's that guy, and it's that guy. And one of the things that I think is the funniest about our band is that a lot of other bands have a very hard time figuring out where we're actually from and where we live. Because if you imagine running into a band of New Zealanders In New Zealand, that makes sense. But then the next time you see them, they're in America. And then the next time you see them, they're in England and Germany and America and then Japan. And we have quite a lot of people that we've gotten to know quite well who for the longest time had absolutely no idea where we lived or even really where we were from. We would just like show up. We would just be there at whatever festival was going on at the time. And that's that whole summer camp thing. It's like touring is like its own little world. And it just so happens that often those festivals are in the summer, which makes it feel even more like summer camp. But that was the time that we met Head from KoRn back home in Auckland.